The Nazis never suspected the girl with the braided pigtails. By the time they did, she'd killed dozens of them. 71 years later, her country finally said thank you. 2014, the Netherlands, a ceremony in The Hague. A room filled with dignitaries, politicians, military officials, photographers. Two elderly women sat in the front row. One was 89 years old, the other was 91. Their names were Freddy and Truus Oversteegen. They were sisters. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte stood at the podium. He held two medals in his hands, the Mobilization War Cross, a military honor for service during World War II. 69 years had passed since the war ended. 69 years these women had waited for this moment. Rutte spoke carefully. These women fought for our country when most others could not or would not. He paused. Let the wait settle. They were 14 and 16 years old when they joined the Dutch resistance. Murmurs rippled through the room. 14, 16. They smuggled Jewish children across borders in the dead of night. They sabotaged Nazi supply lines. They blew up railway tracks to stop deportation trains. He looked directly at the two sisters. They gathered intelligence that saved countless lives. Another pause, longer this time. And yes, they killed enemy soldiers and collaborators with their own hands. The room was silent. Freddy sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap. Her face gave nothing away. But inside, memories flickered. A public park, a woman on a bench, a question, a gunshot. Rutte continued. These women faced impossible choices, choices no teenager should ever face. They drew lines. They maintained their humanity in the face of unimaginable darkness. Freddy closed her eyes, just for a moment. She saw braided pigtails, a bicycle, blood on her hands that wouldn't wash off. She saw forest paths, taverns, doorsteps, the faces of men who never saw it coming. She saw red hair, bright green eyes, a friend who didn't make it home. For their service, for their courage, for their sacrifice, the Kingdom of the Netherlands recognizes Freddy and Truus Oversteegen. The room began to applaud. But what had they done to earn this recognition? What had these two teenage girls experienced that took nearly 70 years to acknowledge? When people asked Freddy how many people she had killed, she always gave the same answer. One should not ask a soldier any of that. She never said the number. Neither did Truus. By the end of the war, they had assassinated dozens of Nazis and collaborators. Some estimates say the number exceeded 100. The exact count, no one knows. This is the story of two teenage girls who seduced Nazi officers, who lured them into forests, who shot them dead. Girls who learned to kill in an underground potato shed. Girls who refused to murder children, even the children of their enemies. Girls who remained human while becoming killers. And girls who were forgotten by the country they saved. How does a 14-year-old girl become an assassin? How do you kill for years and still remain human? The answer begins 74 years earlier. 1940, a small apartment in Haarlem, with a family that believed in one simple principle. When you see injustice, you don't look away. You act. 1940. Haarlem, Netherlands. Freddy Oversteegen was 14 years old. Her sister Truus was 16. They lived with their mother, Trientje, in a tiny apartment. They slept on mattresses stuffed with straw. They had almost nothing, but their mother still made room for others. Jewish refugees fleeing Germany, political fugitives running from the Nazis, strangers who needed a place to hide. One night, a Jewish couple arrived at their door, the Cohens. They spoke in whispers, their hands shook. Trientje gave them the only bedroom. Freddy and Truus slept on the floor. For 3 months, the Cohens lived in their home. Freddy would bring them meals, careful not to make noise. She learned to move silently, to look casual when fear gripped her chest. Then one night, resistance contacts moved the Cohens to another location. The sisters never saw them again. Years later, Freddy would learn the truth. The Cohens were deported, murdered. Their mother was a communist. In 1930s Netherlands, that meant anti-fascist, anti-Nazi. She taught her daughters one lesson above all others. If you have to help somebody, you have to make sacrifices for yourself. It was a lesson they would never forget. May 10th, 1940, Nazi Germany invaded the Netherlands. The Dutch army held out for 5 days, then surrendered. The occupation began immediately. German soldiers filled the streets. Their boots echoed on cobblestones. Nazi flags hung from buildings. Freddy remembered the sound of rifle butts on doors. The Germans were banging on doors with the butts of their rifles. That made so much noise, you'd hear it in the entire neighborhood. And they would always yell. It was very frightening. But the Oversteegen family didn't hide. They fought back. Freddy and Truus distributed anti-Nazi pamphlets and illegal newspapers. At night, they'd sneak through the streets covering German propaganda posters with their own messages. Then they'd race away on their bicycles, hearts pounding. For months, they risked their lives every night. Their activities didn't go unnoticed. 1941. A man named Franz van der Wiel came to their door. He was the commander of the Haarlem Council of Resistance. He'd heard about the Oversteegen family, the mother who hid refugees, the daughters who distributed illegal pamphlets. He wanted to recruit them. He asked Trincha a simple question. Can your daughters join the resistance? Freddy was 15. Truus was 17. Their mother said yes. The girls said yes. But van der Wiel wasn't convinced yet. He needed to know if they would break under pressure. A few days later, he returned dressed as a Gestapo officer. Black uniform, polished boots, a pistol in his hand. He burst through the door, waving the gun, screaming in German. Where is the Jew? Where are you hiding him? Freddy's blood went cold, but she didn't speak. Truus stepped forward, defiant. The man grabbed Truus by the arm, shoved her against the wall. Freddy launched herself at him, kicking, hitting, fighting with everything she had. They didn't give up a single name. They didn't beg. They didn't break. Van der Wiel lowered the gun, pulled off the Gestapo cap, revealed who he really was. They had passed the test. Now he told them what joining the resistance would actually mean. You'll learn to sabotage bridges and railway lines. He paused, looked at both girls, and you'll learn to shoot Nazis. Truus looked at her little sister. Freddy grinned. Well, that's something I've never done before. Their mother gave them one piece of advice before they left. Always stay human. 3 years later, they would be experienced killers. Forest paths, German officers following them into the trees. One bullet, bicycles, targets on the street, another bullet, doorsteps, a knock, a young girl's innocent face. Too late. They had become exactly what van der Wiel needed them to be. Efficient, deadly, unsuspected. But first, they had to learn. The Oversteegen sisters were taken to an underground potato shed. Freddy climbed down the wooden ladder. Each rung creaked under her weight. The smell hit her first, earth and rot, darkness so thick she could barely see her own hands. Van der Wiel lit a kerosene lamp. The flame cast shadows on dirt walls. He handed Freddy a pistol, cold metal, heavier than she expected. Hold it like this. She raised the weapon. Her arm shook. Steady your hand, breathe, aim. In the darkness beneath the earth, they learned to fire. The gunshots echoed in the confined space, deafening. Her ears rang for hours after. How to aim, how to steady their hands, how to kill. Their first mission wasn't assassination, it was arson. Nazi warehouses needed to burn, but they were guarded by SS soldiers. The plan was simple. Freddy and Truus would approach the guards, distract them with smiles and laughter while the rest of the resistance set the fires. Freddy's heart pounded as she walked toward the guard. 17 years old, blonde hair. He smiled when he saw her. She smiled back, asked him about his hometown, laughed at his jokes. Behind him, flames began to spread. By the time he turned around, the warehouse was burning. Van der Wiel saw what they were capable of. These girls could go places men couldn't. Their youth and innocence were weapons. Now came the real test. The resistance had received intelligence about a collaborator, a Dutch woman working with the Nazis. This woman had compiled a list, names and addresses, every Jew in the region. She was planning to hand it to the Germans. The resistance gave Freddy the assignment. 1943. A public park in Haarlem. Freddy rode her bicycle to the park. The park was quiet, birds singing, children playing in the distance, normal. She found her target sitting on a bench. Freddy approached, casual, innocent, just a girl with braided hair. She asked a simple question. What's your name? The woman looked up, smiled, told her. Freddy confirmed she had the right target. The Nazis never suspected the girl with the braided pigtails. She pulled out her pistol. The park was still quiet, birds still singing. She looked the woman in the eyes and fired. The gunshot shattered the silence. The woman slumped on the bench, their last mistake. Freddy's hands shook as she gripped the handlebars. She pedaled away, slowly at first, then faster. Her heart pounded in her ears, louder than the shot had been. She didn't look back. Freddy went home that night. She climbed into bed, and she cried. Later, she would describe what it felt like. The first thing you want to do when you shoot somebody is to pick them up. The instinct to help, even after you've killed them. 2014. Behind the ceremony hall, a journalist cornered Freddy in the corridor, mid-30s, eager, recording device in hand. Mrs. Decker Oversteegen, just one question. For the historical record, Freddy tried to move past him, but he stepped in front of her. How many people did you kill? Exactly. The public deserves to know. Freddy looked at him. Her face gave nothing away. One should not ask a soldier any of that. But you're being honored today. Surely you can. No, she said quietly. I cannot. She walked past him, down the hall, toward a small dressing room. Inside, she stood in front of a mirror. Her hands shook, not from age, from memory. A park bench, a woman's face, the sound of the gunshot. She saw all of it. Still, Truus appeared in the doorway. Are you ready? Freddy didn't turn around. I don't know if I can do this. What do you mean? Stand up there, in front of everyone, and be called a hero for. She couldn't finish. Truus understood. She walked over, put her hand on Freddy's shoulder. We did what we had to do. We saved people. We stopped them from murdering more. I know, Freddy whispered, but I still see their faces. Every one of them. So do I. Truus squeezed her shoulder. That's what makes us different from them. We never forgot. We never stopped being human. Freddy looked at her sister in the mirror. Do you think Hanny would be proud? Truus smiled, tears in her eyes. She'd be here if she could, and she'd tell us to walk out there with our heads up. Freddy nodded, but her hands still shook. I can't do this without thinking about her. She didn't get to grow old. She didn't get recognition. She got a bullet. That's exactly why we have to do this, Truus said. We're accepting this for all three of us, for every resistance fighter who didn't make it home. Freddy took a breath, straightened her jacket. Okay, she said, let's go. 1943. The next morning, Freddy woke up. Her hands still shook, but there were more lists, more collaborators, more Nazis. She got on her bicycle. Over the next 2 years, Freddy and Truus developed their own techniques, their own methods. They learned what worked, the forest. Freddy or Truus would go to bars where German officers gathered, strike up a conversation, laugh at his jokes, touch his arm, lean in close. Then ask the question, would you like to go for a stroll in the woods? The officer always said yes. They'd walk into the forest together, deeper and deeper, away from witnesses. The other sister would be waiting, hidden among the trees, one bullet to the head. They'd leave his body in a hole already dug, and walk away on their bicycles. The bicycle. Truus would pedal while Freddy sat on the back, pistol ready. They'd identify their target, ride past him. Freddy would fire, then keep riding. Just two girls on a bicycle. Nothing unusual. The doorstep. Sometimes they'd knock on a target's door. He'd see a young girl, innocent. By the time he realized the danger, it was too late. They killed efficiently now, quickly, without hesitation. But they still cried after, every single time. For 2 years, Freddy and Truus worked alone, building their reputation, perfecting their methods. Then a third young woman appeared at Vanderweel's door. Her name was Jeanette Johanna Schaft. Everyone called her Hanny. She was different from the Oversteegen sisters, middle-class family, studying law, planning to become a human rights lawyer. But when the Nazis demanded all students sign a loyalty pledge to Germany, Hanny refused. She was expelled. She didn't go home. She joined the resistance. Hanny had distinctive features: bright red hair, green eyes, pale skin. Vanderweel tested her the same way he'd tested the Oversteegen sisters. He gave her a gun and sent her to assassinate a Nazi officer. She approached the target, raised the weapon. Her hands were shaking. She pulled the trigger. Click. The gun was empty. The Nazi officer revealed himself as Vanderweel. She had passed. Now 3 young women would work together. Within 2 years, one of them would be dead, executed 18 days before liberation. But they didn't know that yet, and they had work to do. Hanny was the intellectual. She spread maps across tables, drew diagrams, planned every detail. Truus was the leader. She made the hard calls, decided who lived and who died. Freddy was the scout. She mapped escape routes, memorized street corners, always knew the way out. Together, they became a lethal unit. They blew up railway lines to stop deportation trains. They smuggled Jewish children out of the country, sometimes walking them across borders in the middle of the night. They stole identity papers, forged documents, gathered intelligence on German troop movements. And yes, they killed German soldiers, Nazi officers, Gestapo agents, Dutch collaborators. The collaborators were often the most dangerous targets. Dutch citizens who betrayed their own people for money or power. Truus explained it simply. We were dealing with cancerous tumors in society. You had to cut them out like a surgeon, but there were lines they would not cross. One day, an order came from resistance leadership. The target was Arthur Seyss-Inquart, the Reich Commissioner of the Netherlands, one of the most powerful Nazis in the country. The mission was to kidnap his children, use them as leverage to force him to release resistance prisoners. And if he refused, kill the children. Hanny sat at the table, the order in front of her. She looked at Freddy and Truus. No, she said. Freddy nodded. We are not Hitlerites. Resistance fighters don't murder children. They refused the mission. They had killed many people. They would kill more. But children? Never. Truus was cycling through the streets one afternoon when she saw something that would mark her forever. A Dutch SS soldier, a Dutchman who had joined the Nazi forces. He was standing in the street. He had grabbed an infant from a family. The father was there, the baby's sister, screaming, hysterical. The soldier held the baby up and smashed it against the wall. The child died instantly. Truus stopped her bicycle. She pulled out her pistol and shot the soldier dead, right there, in the middle of the street. It wasn't an assignment. There were no orders. That wasn't a mission, she said later, but I don't regret it. By 1944, Hannie Schaft was one of the most wanted people in the Netherlands. Her red hair had been spotted at too many scenes. The Nazis issued a bulletin, "Find the girl with the red hair." Hannie dyed her hair black, started wearing glasses, changed her appearance, but she didn't stop fighting. June 1944. She and a fellow resistance fighter named Jan Bonenkamp were assigned to kill a Dutch collaborator named Willem Ragu. Hannie had planned it carefully. The route, the timing, the escape. They found him. Bonenkamp shot him, but Ragu didn't die immediately. And in the chaos, Bonenkamp was shot in the stomach. Hannie escaped. Bonenkamp was captured, taken to a hospital, dying. The Nazis interrogated him. He refused to talk. Then they tried a different approach. An officer pretended to be a resistance member, told Bonenkamp he was a friend. Bonenkamp was 23. He'd been in the resistance for 2 years. He'd never broken, but now, bleeding out, drugged, barely conscious, the fake resistance member whispered, "We need to warn Hannie. Where can we find her?" Bonenkamp gave up her address. He died shortly after. He never knew what he'd done. The Nazis raided Hannie's parents' home, arrested her mother and father, sent them to a concentration camp. Hannie went into hiding. For months, she stayed underground, but she couldn't stay hidden forever. March 21st, 1945. The war was almost over. Allied forces were advancing. Liberation was weeks away. Hannie was cycling through Haarlem, carrying illegal newspapers and a pistol. She was stopped at a Nazi checkpoint. They searched her. They found everything. She was arrested. 2014, the ceremony hall. Freddy stood backstage. Through a gap in the curtain, she could see the audience. Row 3, right side, an elderly couple, mid-70s. The woman had red hair, faded now, but still red. Hannie's younger sister, and her husband. Freddy's breath caught. She hadn't known they would be here. Prime Minister Rutte was still speaking on stage. Something about sacrifice, about heroism, but Freddy couldn't hear him. All she could see was that red hair. Truus came up beside her, followed her gaze. "I can't do this," Freddy whispered. "She's not here. She should be standing next to us, but she's not. And her voice broke. She died because we weren't careful enough, because we didn't protect her." Truus took her hand. "Hannie died protecting us. She never gave up our names, even when they tortured her. I know. She'd want us up there, accepting this, showing the world what she did." Freddy looked at her sister, tears in her eyes. "How do we accept an honor when the best of us didn't survive?" Truus squeezed her hand. "We accept it for all 3 of us. That's how." A stage manager appeared. "Ladies, you're on in 2 minutes." Freddy took a breath, wiped her eyes. She looked at Hannie's sister one more time. The woman was watching the stage, waiting. "Okay," Freddy said. "Let's go." For Hannie. 1945. They took Hannie to a prison in Amsterdam. For weeks, they interrogated her, tortured her, kept her in solitary confinement. Eventually, they noticed something. Her hair was black, but her roots were growing in red. They had found the girl with the red hair. Hanny admitted to her assassinations. She confessed to what she had done, but she never gave up a single name. Not one member of the resistance. Not Freddy. Not Truus. No one. She protected her friends until the very end. April 17th, 1945, 18 days before the Netherlands would be liberated. The war was over. Everyone knew it. There was even an agreement between the Nazis and the Dutch resistance to stop executions. But Willy Lodges, the Nazi officer in charge, ignored it. He wanted Hannie Schaft dead. 2 Dutch collaborators were assigned as executioners, traitors to their own country. Their names were Matthias Schmitz and Martin Kuiper. They took Hannie to the sand dunes of Overveen, the same dunes where hundreds of resistance fighters had already been killed and buried. The wind blew across the dunes, cold, sharp. Schmitz raised his pistol and fired. The shot echoed across the sand. The bullet grazed Hannie's head. Blood ran down her face. She stumbled, but she didn't fall. She looked at her executioner, blood in her eyes, wind in her red hair, and said, "I shoot better than you." Kuiper raised his submachine gun and fired. Hannie Schaft died in those dunes. She was 24. They buried her in a shallow grave, so shallow that her red hair was still visible above the sand. The Netherlands was liberated on May 5th, 1945, 18 days after Hannie died. 2014, the ceremony hall. The stage manager gave the signal. Freddy and Truus walked from backstage into the lights. The audience rose. Applause filled the room. Freddy's legs felt unsteady, but she kept walking, one foot in front of the other. She could see Hannie's sister now. The woman was crying, smiling through tears. Prime Minister Rutte stood at the center of the stage. He held the 2 medals. Freddy and Truus stopped in front of him. Rutte spoke directly to them, his voice quiet enough that only they could hear. "The Netherlands owes you a debt we can never repay. Thank you." He pinned the mobilization war cross on Freddy's jacket. The weight of it surprised her, heavier than she expected. Then he pinned the medal on Truus. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Freddy looked at Truus, her sister, her partner, the only other person who understood. They had survived. Hannie hadn't. Freddy whispered, "We did it for her too." Truus nodded, tears streaming down her face. They turned to face the audience. The applause continued. Freddy found Hannie's sister in the crowd. The woman was standing, clapping, crying. Freddy placed her hand over the medal, over her heart, and she nodded to Hannie's sister. A silent promise. We remember her. We always will. After the war, they found 422 bodies in the Overveen dunes, 421 men and 1 woman, Hannie Schaft. She was given a state funeral. Queen Wilhelmina called her the symbol of the resistance. But Freddy and Truus, they received nothing for decades. Why? Because they were communists. In the Cold War, that was enough. It didn't matter that they'd saved hundreds of lives. Communist ties meant silence, suspicion, erasure. Truus coped by creating art. She became a sculptor, making memorials to the resistance. She wrote a memoir. Freddy chose differently. "I coped by getting married and having babies." She married Jan Decker, had 3 children, tried to build a normal life, but the past never let her go. She couldn't sleep. Nightmares came without warning. When people asked how many people she had killed, she always gave the same answer. One should not ask a soldier any of that. She never said the number. Neither did Truus. Some things you carry alone. Truus Oversteegen died on June 18th, 2016. Freddy Oversteegen died on September 5th, 2018, one day before her 93rd birthday. Throughout her life, Freddy visited Hannie Schaft's grave. She left red roses for the friend who didn't make it. When asked what advice she had for future generations, Truus said, "When you have to make a decision, it must be the right one, and you must always remain human." Those were the words their mother had given them before they joined the resistance. Always stay human. Freddy and Truus killed people. They shot men in forests and on street corners. They watched the life leave their enemies' eyes, but they remained human. They cried after every kill. They refused to murder children. They carried the weight of what they'd done for the rest of their lives. Historians estimate that during World War II, approximately 90% of the Dutch population tried to live their lives as normally as possible under Nazi occupation. 5% collaborated with the enemy. 5% joined the resistance. Of that 5%, only a handful of women took up arms, and even fewer killed with their own hands. Freddy Oversteegen was one of them. A 14-year-old girl with braided pigtails and a pistol hidden in her bicycle basket. She wasn't a hero from a movie. There was no dramatic music, no slow-motion shots, no Hollywood ending. Just a teenage girl who decided that some things are worth killing for and some things are worth dying for. The three of them, Freddy, Truus, and Hanny, are believed to have killed dozens of Nazis and Dutch collaborators. Some estimates say the number exceeded 100. Freddy lived to be 92. She never told anyone how many Nazis she killed, and she never apologized for any of it, because she had remained human, even while becoming a killer. This is the War Maestro Chronicles. Buried heroes, silenced voices, the stories erased by politics and time. History remembers Hanny Shaft, the girl with the red hair, the symbol of resistance. But Freddy and Truus, they waited 69 years for recognition. 69 years of silence, because they were communists, because they were women who killed. They saved hundreds of lives, and their country tried to forget them. We remember them now, but they were forgotten first. If you want more stories the victors tried to erase, subscribe. Your support keeps their truth from being buried again. Thanks for watching.